Food themed decor is having a moment on TikTok. Or so said Gillian G and Durko for Bustle in 2023, article updated 2024. And I would say to you, Gillian, that I agree. For the last couple of years, I've been seeing an increasing selection of food themed decor items popping up across retailers and social media platforms, from fruit shaped laundry hampers to fried egg bath mats and burger shaped coaster sets. I've especially been seeing creators on TikTok buying, DIYing and showing their collections of food themed home items. And as somebody who loves carbs and chatting about home decor, I've got to say, I've enjoyed a lot of this content. I think that overall, DIY, art, craft, TikTok seems to be a nice and generally welcoming community of creators and commenters. It's a place where expression and experimentation are celebrated and where people are able to lean into their own personal styles and indulge their eccentricities. I want to be mindful in this video not to focus on taste. Whether I personally like something or not is pretty much irrelevant when I choose to put things like this on my wall, but instead I want to discuss a very specific element of the food as homeware trend on TikTok, which I think may be being over-consumed. That being, of course, if you've read the title of this video, the HomeGoods food-shaped stools. Now, if you've never seen one of these stools before, it's likely that A, you're not into the TikTok DIY maximalist colourful home scene, and B, you're probably not going to be very interested in this video. But if you do want to stick around, let me tell you a bit about these stools, discuss why they're so popular on TikTok, and also talk about where I think that this trend is headed. So the stools in question, as you can see, are in the shapes of different giant foodstuffs. They gained viral status on TikTok, with a number of creators growing their followings at least partially by making content about them. They're made from different materials depending on their style, so some are ceramic, others I think are made of some sort of resin type material, and some might be made of other things too. I couldn't quite pin down exactly what these are made of. I've never actually seen or touched one in real life, so that is limiting for me.
HomeGoods ones are like ceramic-ish, or like they feel like paper mache, honestly. Like it feels like they're gonna break in half. These ones are like a thick type resin material. They're like heavy duty and I trust them way more.
They can be purchased at a number of different American retailers, mostly seemingly large out-of-town stores seems to be where they're sold, with the shop name that I see most frequently referenced as being a purveyor of these stools being HomeGoods. Quick aside, you might be able to tell from my accent that I'm not from America, so I really have no business knowing about places like HomeGoods or Michael's or Joann's. But thanks to the power of TikTok, I've been able to learn that they're basically just HomeSense, TK Maxx and Hobbycraft. Anyway, let's read a quote from that Bustle article about these stools. It's easy to assume the HomeGoods viral lemon stool was the start of the trend, but in reality, this interior design style has been around for much longer than that. In fact, it wasn't even the first time a fruity stool went viral on TikTok. You might remember an adorable strawberry version making waves on the Clock app in May 2021. I was grateful to Gillian for linking to this video and for tracing the food stool trend back to 2021 and this strawberry stool. Interestingly, on the same day that this video was posted, this other video was also posted by a popular account, and this video is something that I've gone back and searched for specifically because I'm fairly certain that this video was my personal first introduction to the food stall trend. I remember this specifically because when I saw this video, my immediate reaction was, I should buy a corn stool. And therein lies the power of influencer marketing. I remember going over to Google to investigate the possibility of buying said corn stool even, and only talked myself out of it once I saw the price. I have seen some hate for the corn stool on TikTok, but because this is the first of the food stools that I encountered, it will always be the best and the most novel one in my eyes. Also, I like that it has a bite taken out of it, which I don't think any of the other ones have, and that adds an extra layer of intrigue in my opinion. The Bustle article also notes that the corn stool specifically had an extra boost in popularity after being featured in Emma Chamberlain's 2022 Architectural Digest home tour, which I know was a massively popular video. I haven't actually watched it all the way through, but I went and looked at this bit and I do think that the corn stool looks lovely in her place.
Actually, I got this as a gift and I got one of them and I loved them so much that I bought two more. I also have a random pineapple one.
So after initially being fed that first corn stall by the algorithm and responding positively to it, the platforms clearly learned that this is the type of shit they should be showing me. And over the coming months and years, I have been shown more and more videos of more and more food-shaped stools. And it's not just me who's watched and enjoyed this content, obviously. Some of the videos about these stools have millions of views and thousands of comments. Clearly these things thrive in an algorithm. So what is it about them that invokes such virality? And the number one answer to that question, in short, is that they're fun. In long, I'd argue that they appeal to a common desire amongst younger generations for nostalgia and play by subverting the expectation of what a furniture piece should look like. I've seen a lot of people online discussing the idea of dopamine dressing and more recently dopamine decor, a trend in design towards bold colours, patterns, motifs, which rejects rules and leans into a personal expression of joy, which sounds lovely to me and is obviously something that I'm behind. I have a theory that these stools appeal particularly to millennials because we are commonly the first generation in our families to go to therapy, realise we have some inner child work to figure out and are happy to lean into that with our home design choices. And B, we also grew up in the 90s when the prop designers for the borrowers absolutely smashed their brief and left us all with a subconscious desire to own giant versions of things. Birdie Wood is one creator on TikTok who is known for her collection of giant household items, and she herself has a number of these food stools. We can't undermine the importance of these creators pushing the popularity of the stools through their own creativity and passion for what they do. These stools provide ample opportunities for upcycling and DIYs, which is my personal favourite genre of TikTok. And I've seen a lot of these creators experimenting with their stools in different ways, adding glass tabletops, painting them, or even bedazzling them. And I love this. I always love seeing people express their creativity and make something their own. And I can see why these stools make a popular base for DIY projects. Again, they're fun. All in all, these things are pretty big, pretty bold, pretty colourful, all of which are things that appeal to an algorithm which is dependent on catching the viewer's eye within the first nanosecond of the video. In terms of design, they're what we might call a statement piece. Interior design is essentially just curation, an assemblage of pieces, furniture, art, decor, which all work in unison to serve the function and aesthetics of a space. Good interior design is often seen as a space which offers the feeling of balance. And to create that feeling, you need visual peaks and visual pits. These stools offer a visual peak, a point of interest and perhaps discussion. You don't necessarily expect to see a giant lemon in the dining room, and the novelty of it being there can indeed enhance your enjoyment of that space. Many designy people will advocate for limiting the number of statement pieces that you include in any one design, and to offset any bold choices by mixing in simpler pieces to cleanse the palette and help to create that sense of balance. If your design style follows this rule, you might acquire a few statement pieces and then be done with it, which is great for you, but not so good for the algorithm, nor indeed the HomeGoods shareholders. Engagement and sales are driven by the ability to constantly reignite that sense of novelty and excitement in their viewers and in their customers. And this is where the maximalists come into it. I think that the maximalist aesthetic is so popular on interior design TikTok, in part due to its very definition. A maximalist is likely to be doing things to the maximum. Thus, there is a never-ending abundance of items to show, to make, or to talk about. TikTok's platform offers an interesting dichotomy in that creators are forced to both niche down, sometimes into very specific formats of videos, in order to get any traction in the algorithm, while also being able to provide enough variety and novelty within that niche to keep their viewers interested. I think the maximalist design niche offers this opportunity quite well for creators who can grow their followings as they grow their home decor collections. The retailers clearly noticed the viral success of their initial offering of these stools and must have realised that many customers were not limiting themselves to buying only one of these things. The stools had gotten popular with the online maximalist community pretty early on, and they wanted to collect all the foods that were available. The company seemingly responded cleverly to this initial viral success, and from what I can tell, they've been regularly adding new foods to their menu of stools for the last couple of years now. I'm actually quite surprised by the sheer variety on offer for somebody in the market for a food-shaped stool these days. When this trend started, the majority of the stools that I was seeing posted were fruit-shaped, and then over time favour seemed to shift towards more dough-based items, baked goods, biscuits, and now more recently I'm seeing an increase in drink-shaped stools being popular. The more pieces the shops released, the more they seemingly sold. And while I have seen videos of people complaining that the price has gone up while the quality has gone down, they seemingly still sell well and people still want to watch videos about them. Why? So, from what I understand, the main shops that sell these stools do not also sell them online. There's limited stock held of them in each of the stores, and some stores get some styles while other stores get others, and at different times, all under cover of night, or whatever time of day their stock typically comes in. And this, I believe, is the key reason for their success. Some of the most popular videos on TikTok about these stools are of people physically going into the shops and looking for them. The videos are positioned as kind of treasure hunts, fun little adventures out to the shops with the girlies, and honestly, who doesn't love that? Sometimes people will go to multiple different locations in one day in their search for a specific item, and they take TikTok along for the ride. Some of the creators out hunting for these stools may already have 2, 4, 8, 10 of them at home, but they still want to go out and find that new style to complete their set. Through a combination of viral popularity and possibly manufactured scarcity, these stools have become collectibles. There is genuine joy that comes from being a collector, and so many different people collect so many different things. As somebody who's collected quite a few different things in my lifetime, I can say that when you find that thing that you've been looking for your collection, it feels amazing. Going back to the 90s kid millennial thing, one of the first things I remember collecting as a child were Pokemon cards. I remember so vividly the excitement of opening up that pack and finding the exact card that I was hoping to find. And the dopamine hit of finding these fruit stools is no doubt no different. I don't think it helps anyone for people to judge other collectors and what they choose to collect, because what tickles my fancy isn't going to tickle the next man's. So many people would hate this, but it delights me. Reiterating that I'm not coming at this as a hater, but I do feel like I need to know that unlike Pokemon cards, these stools are actual pieces of furniture, meaning that they're relatively large and relatively expensive things. Based on the videos I've seen, I think that the going rate for these stools is somewhere between $60 to $80, which is about this much in pounds. It's interesting to me then that despite their relatively large size and their relatively high price, people still want to own so many of them. I mean, they are obviously functional pieces of furniture, so there are arguments for why you'd have more than one. You can sit on them, use them as a side table, a nightstand, an outdoor table, a footstool, etc. So they're not useless, but I can't believe that for at least some of the people with the large collections of these, that the overflow ones that don't have a set purpose don't sometimes feel like they're in the way. For reference, here are some videos from some large TikTok creators who are showing their collections of these stools. In this video, Birdie Wood shows a collection of 9 total food stools, while Waverly shows 11 in her video. As per the most recent collection video that I've seen from Vintage Show Pony, they have at least 15 of these stools. And then there's Karen Joy, who is the creator that I associate most with this trend, and she seems very lovely. In her collection video, I counted 19 of these stools. We all know the Pokemon tagline, gotta catch 'em all, and I think that that can be applied to the culture around these stools. It's always going to be the drive of the collector to have the full set, and arguably even more so for these creators who are no doubt tagged hundreds of times every time a new stool comes out. I can see how they might feel some added pressure to acquire new things for their collections because it's what their audience expects of them. I do wonder if some of these creators feel obligated or driven to buy some things without actually knowing where they're going to put them in their homes. And it's this kind of pressure to constantly consume which is what concerns me. But still, a new stool is released and the hunt begins. A standard TikTok might start out in the car with a short explanation that today we are hoping to find the Oreo cookie stool. There's been whispers that it's been spotted in X location this week, and that's only a 45-minute drive from home, so it's worth a try. Then we cut to inside the store, we're browsing the home aisles, searching, anticipating, hoping, and then look! There is the Oreo stool that we were looking for. We see them run happily towards it, we see them beep through at the checkout, we might even see the car ride home. And then eventually we get the payoff of seeing the item styled and enjoyed in its new home. It's an enjoyable little story arc that will appeal to many types of viewers, including myself. Or maybe in the same scenario, they don't have the Oreo stool in stock. They do have the donut stool, but you already have the donut stool at home. So you leave disappointed, but unwilling to give up just yet. So then you drive another 30 minutes to the next town over and head into another store, run over to the homeware section and find not the Oreo stool, but the artichoke stool. You didn't come out for the artichoke, but you've never seen it in store before. You've only seen a couple other people on TikTok who've gotten their hands on it. Since you've driven all this way, you may as well buy it because you'll probably never see it in the shop again. So you go home somewhat satisfied with a giant artichoke in hand and you go to TikTok to tell the story. At the end of the video, you ensure your viewers not to worry. You're not giving up on the Oreo stool. You'll get it next time. The comment sections of these videos are filled with people giving tips on where they've spotted different stools. Some people might offer to buy a stool for a creator and ship it to them. Other people in the comments maybe want to get in on that deal. It's quite a lot of community all surrounding these stools. It's interesting. Of course, we've seen this kind of thing many times before with various trends and fads. The element of scarcity, whether real, imagined, or manufactured, is what has driven a lot of the more obsessive consumer behaviour in the past. And I suppose it makes sense evolutionarily too. Back in the day, if you were foraging for berries, you'd probably try and pick and eat as many as you could because you didn't know when you were going to find berries again. During COVID, we saw people overstocking on household essentials like toilet paper for fear that there wouldn't be enough to go around, thus actually creating a supply shortage when there didn't need to be one. Another 90s reference, Cabbage Patch dolls. Parents were literally getting into fistfights over these things. More recently, I know the internet went wild for Stanley Cups and loads of people were rushing out trying to get their hands on those. To be fair, I haven't seen any evidence of antisocial shopping behaviour happening around these stools. And in fact, sometimes you see these heartwarming videos of people bonding in the shops over a shared appreciation for them, which is cute.
Is it a cookie trash can? No, it's a stool. Ew, even better.
The community around the stools seems to me, as an outsider, to be very lovely and wholesome, but creators and viewers do still need to be conscious of the potential for overconsumption when you get swept up in a trend or start feeling duty bound to a collection. We need to remember that these stools are being mostly sold brand new, although I have seen a number of these bigger creators buying them secondhand too, I should say that. But again, they're pretty big, pretty expensive furniture items, which are ultimately a trendy thing. Being trendy means that we've been shown them enough times to have been conditioned to like them, in the same way that we were told that we like chevrons or mustache prints or Playboy pencil cases for children. I don't imagine that they're all biodegradable either, so many of them I'm sure will actually outlast our bodies on this planet, which is something we do need to be keeping in mind whenever we shop. All of those above things makes them something that should require a bit of extra thought before purchasing, or before purchasing large quantities of. Before buying any large, expensive, trendy item, we should be asking ourselves, is this something that I'm going to want to keep for a long time? If yes, then go for it. If no, then maybe don't. I do wonder how many of these creators will keep their collections of these stools for any significant period of time. And if and when they choose to get rid of some of them, what will the life cycle of that stool be after it's left their hands? I've already seen Karen Joy mention in her stool collection video that she wanted to get rid of a few of her stools because she now has too many.
So I'm starting outside. I have the peppermint out here, I have the bagel out here, and I think these two are ones I might end up getting rid of just because they're not, I have so many, like I need to start getting rid of some, and these are probably like my least favorite of all the ones I have.
While I'm sure that many of the stools passed on by their primary owners will be happily rehomed on the secondhand market in the coming years, it's important to note that we can't control anything that happens to any item that we dispose of once we've disposed of it. And I worry that many of the stools that have been purchased during this trend will ultimately end up in landfill, which I know is such a Debbie Downer thing to say. I'm sorry. Next and final reason why these stools are so popular. And we have to note the obvious, that the stools are in the shape of food, and people like looking at food. Food's a powerful, emotive and universal symbol, which has been depicted in art, fashion, homewares, textiles and decor throughout history. Different food items have different visual connotations. Some might evoke ideas of wealth and abundance. Others might allude to fertility, eroticism, death or resilience. A food item that I hope we are all seeing represented heavily across our For You pages at the moment is of course the watermelon, which I'm sure you know is a symbol of protest and solidarity with the Palestinian freedom movement. The horrific genocide of Palestinians in Gaza is still going on 8 months later, and the level of death, destruction and horrific trauma is honestly unfathomable. As we're talking about food related things in this video, it has to be noted that Gaza is currently under forced starvation. Vital food supplies into the Gaza Strip have been repeatedly blocked, attacked and looted. People are eating grass and horse feed, and children are literally starving to death. We all need to be doing our bit, contacting our representatives and then voting accordingly, boycotting complicit companies and products, and protesting and donating if possible. I'm going to link the Operation Olive Branch sheet in the description of this video, which is a large database of families and initiatives that you can support to help the people in Gaza. So please do take a look at that link if you are in the position to be able to donate. Thank you. Food being as it is so core to our survival, it's no surprise that representations of it are so ever present in art and design. Food motifs are as common as florals and are constantly reimagined and replaced with each new trend cycle. Within my conscious lifetime, I can remember quite a few specific design trends centered around food items. Cherries were really popular at one point. I actually have cherries on my dress today. Then there was a time when pineapples were everywhere, cupcakes, peaches, and more recently I've noticed that tins of sardines seem to be the in thing. Ultimately, each of those older trends eventually ran its course, and many of the goods that would have been mass produced to serve those trends are probably now sitting unwanted in homes and thrift shops and rubbish tips. And sadly, I think that this may also be the fate of the HomeGoods food stall. It's had a good run, a few years now already, which is a long time in our modern capitalist hell. The product's repeated viral success has been assured by the continued excitement and creativity of a smallish group of maximalist design creators on TikTok, who, it is obvious, all genuinely love the product. I don't think that any of these creators were making these videos in order to shift the stock of these stalls on behalf of HomeSense. No, they just like them and they like talking about them. I do think though that as these creators' collections have grown, their excitement for each individual piece has possibly decreased. I think that the problems with stocking and the whole scarcity thing is really what allowed the virality of these products to go on for so long. And I'd argue that for some of the people jumping on the trend, that the thrill of the hunt was possibly more satisfying than actually taking the pieces home. Maybe they might like geocaching. The supposed rarity of the stalls is what's kept them in demand for so long, but by now it really does seem that the market is pretty saturated with competing retailers offering more or less the same thing, and I'm not sure how much longer we have before the supply greatly outweighs the demand. So what's the conclusion to the video? I don't know really. I just found this whole thing interesting, and before I knew it I'd written a 10-page document all about food shaped stalls that doesn't have a conclusion. But I guess if I was gonna say anything, it would be, if you like these stalls but you don't yet own one, just wait a little bit longer and buy one second hand, because I think that they're going to be available.